I stood near a towering ice sculpture of a swan, a crystal glass of flat tonic water sweating in my hand, as I watched my family perform their favorite routine, pretending I didn't exist while using me as a punchline. The grand ballroom of the Starlight Hotel was suffocatingly opulent. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over hundreds of people dressed in bespoke tuxedos and designer evening gowns. This was the annual Winter Gala for Aegis Global, one of the largest shipping and logistics conglomerates in the world. I, wearing a slightly faded navy suit I'd bought off a clearance rack 6 years ago, was entirely invisible to the corporate elite mingling around me. A few feet away, my younger brother Derek was holding court. He was surrounded by a group of mid-level executives, laughing loudly and spinning a completely fabricated story about a marketing campaign he claimed to have spearheaded. Standing right beside him, beaming with an intoxicating mixture of pride and arrogance, were our parents. My mother kept touching Derek's arm, preening him like a prize-winning show horse, while my father aggressively nodded at every word Derek said, validating his lies. Whenever one of the executives politely glanced my way and asked who I was, Derek would let out a condescending little sigh. "Oh, that's just my brother David," Derek would say, his voice dripping with faux pity. "He's a basement coder, tinkers with spreadsheets all day. We try to get him out of the house, but you know how antisocial the tech support types can be." The executives would chuckle, offer a tight-lipped smile in my direction, and immediately turn their backs to me. They saw a nobody, a pathetic introverted hanger-on, crashing a billionaire's party. They had no idea who I really was. And they certainly had no idea that the elusive, notoriously ruthless owner of Aegis Global, a man nobody in this room had ever met face to face, was about to walk through those towering oak doors and completely destroy Derek's life. To understand the absolute poetic justice of that night, you have to understand the toxic nightmare that was my childhood. In my family, Derek was the golden child, the prodigy, the undeniable center of the universe. I was merely the contingency plan, the safety net, the beast of burden expected to carry the weight whenever Derek stumbled. The dynamic was established early and enforced with brutal consistency. If Derek wanted to join an elite traveling soccer team, my parents emptied their savings to pay the fees, leaving me to take on a part-time job at 14 just to buy my own school clothes. When Derek totaled his first car, a brand new sports coupe my parents bought for his high school graduation, they hugged him, told him the brakes must have been defective, and co-signed a lease for a luxury SUV. When I needed a reliable laptop for my university courses, my father told me that building character meant learning the value of $1, forcing me to work night shifts at a warehouse to afford a refurbished brick of a computer. Derek was loud, charismatic, and conventionally handsome, perfectly mirroring the superficial qualities my parents valued above all else. I was quiet, deeply analytical, and perfectly content to sit alone in my room deciphering complex data structures. My parents truly believed Derek was destined for greatness, meant to conquer boardrooms or grace the covers of magazines. They believed I was destined to be his loyal, quiet servant, always ready to sacrifice my own stability to ensure his success. That twisted dynamic carried seamlessly into our adult lives. Derek managed to smooth-talk his way into a junior public relations role at Aegis Global. He spent his days attending lavish lunches, taking credit for the tireless work of his interns, and racking up astronomical credit card debt to maintain the illusion of a wealthy, high-powered executive. I, on the other hand, became an independent supply chain algorithm developer. It was painstaking, highly complex work that involved analyzing millions of data points to optimize global shipping routes, reduce fuel consumption, and eliminate logistical bottlenecks. Because I worked from a home office, wore comfortable clothes, and never bragged about my income, my parents and Derek assumed I was a low-level freelancer barely scraping by on minimum wage. They viewed my career as a cute little hobby, and eventually I stopped trying to explain the reality of my life to them. What they didn't know was that my algorithms had caught the attention of some very powerful, very wealthy people. 2 years ago, I was approached anonymously on a highly secured invite-only developers forum by an angel investor looking to fund a revolutionary logistics software. The investor had seen a white paper I published under a pseudonym and offered me full creative control, a massive development budget, and a 50% equity stake in the intellectual property once it was completed. We communicated exclusively through encrypted emails and voice-altered calls to protect the proprietary nature of the work. For 2 years, I worked tirelessly. I built an entirely new AI-driven architecture from the ground up, a software capable of predicting supply chain disruptions before they happened and rerouting shipments globally in a matter of milliseconds. The software was complete, fully tested, and we were slated to launch it and revolutionize the industry at the end of the month. But my family knew absolutely nothing about my project, my equity, or my quiet, rapidly accumulating wealth, and that staggering ignorance set the stage for the most horrific, unforgivable betrayal of my life. It started exactly 2 weeks before the Aegis Global Gala. My parents invited me over for what my mother described in a text as an urgent family matter. The moment I walked into their formal dining room and saw my mother's forced, trembling smile and my father's rigid, aggressive posture, my stomach tied itself into a heavy knot. Derek was sitting at the head of the table, looking uncharacteristically terrified, aggressively chewing on his thumbnail. Derek was loud, charismatic, and conventionally handsome, perfectly mirroring the superficial qualities my parents valued above all else. I was quiet, deeply analytical, and perfectly content to sit alone in my room deciphering complex data structures. My parents truly believed Derek was destined for greatness, meant to conquer boardrooms or grace the covers of magazines. They believed I was destined to be his loyal, quiet servant, always ready to sacrifice my own stability to ensure his success. That twisted dynamic carried seamlessly into our adult lives. Derek managed to smooth talk his way into a junior public relations role at Aegis Global. He spent his days attending lavish lunches, taking credit for the tireless work of his interns, and racking up astronomical credit card debt to maintain the illusion of a wealthy, high-powered executive. I, on the other hand, became an independent supply chain algorithm developer. It was painstaking, highly complex work that involved analyzing millions of data points to optimize global shipping routes, reduce fuel consumption, and eliminate logistical bottlenecks. Because I worked from a home office, wore comfortable clothes, and never bragged about my income, my parents and Derek assumed I was a low-level freelancer, barely scraping by on minimum wage. They viewed my career as a cute little hobby, and eventually I stopped trying to explain the reality of my life to them. What they didn't know was that my algorithms had caught the attention of some very powerful, very wealthy people. 2 years ago, I was approached anonymously on a highly secured, invite-only developers forum by an angel investor looking to fund a revolutionary logistics software. The investor had seen a white paper I published under a pseudonym and offered me full creative control, a massive development budget, and a 50% equity stake in the intellectual property once it was completed. We communicated exclusively through encrypted emails and voice-altered calls to protect the proprietary nature of the work. For 2 years, I worked tirelessly. I built an entirely new AI-driven architecture from the ground up, a software capable of predicting supply chain disruptions before they happened and rerouting shipments globally in a matter of milliseconds. The software was complete, fully tested, and we were slated to launch it and revolutionize the industry at the end of the month. But my family knew absolutely nothing about my project, my equity, or my quiet, rapidly accumulating wealth, and that staggering ignorance set the stage for the most horrific, unforgivable betrayal of my life. It started exactly 2 weeks before the Aegis Global Gala. My parents invited me over for what my mother described in a text as an urgent family matter. The moment I walked into their formal dining room and saw my mother's forced, trembling smile and my father's rigid, aggressive posture, my stomach tied itself into a heavy knot. Derek was sitting at the head of the table, looking uncharacteristically terrified, aggressively chewing on his thumbnail. Derek was loud, charismatic, and conventionally handsome, perfectly mirroring the superficial qualities my parents valued above all else. I was quiet, deeply analytical, and perfectly content to sit alone in my room deciphering complex data structures. My parents truly believed Derek was destined for greatness, meant to conquer boardrooms or grace the covers of magazines. They believed I was destined to be his loyal, quiet servant, always ready to sacrifice my own stability to ensure his success. That twisted dynamic carried seamlessly into our adult lives. Derek managed to smooth talk his way into a junior public relations role at Aegis Global. He spent his days attending lavish lunches, taking credit for the tireless work of his interns, and racking up astronomical credit card debt to maintain the illusion of a wealthy, high-powered executive. I, on the other hand, became an independent supply chain algorithm developer. It was painstaking, highly complex work that involved analyzing millions of data points to optimize global shipping routes, reduce fuel consumption, and eliminate logistical bottlenecks. Because I worked from a home office, wore comfortable clothes, and never bragged about my income, my parents and Derek assumed I was a low-level freelancer barely scraping by on minimum wage. They viewed my career as a cute little hobby, and eventually, I stopped trying to explain the reality of my life to them. What they didn't know was that my algorithms had caught the attention of some very powerful, very wealthy people. 2 years ago, I was approached anonymously on a highly secured, invite-only developers forum by an angel investor looking to fund a revolutionary logistics software. The investor had seen a white paper I published under a pseudonym and offered me full creative control, a massive development budget, and a 50% equity stake in the intellectual property once it was completed. We communicated exclusively through encrypted emails and voice-altered calls to protect the proprietary nature of the work. For 2 years, I worked tirelessly. I built an entirely new AI-driven architecture from the ground up, a software capable of predicting supply chain disruptions before they happened and rerouting shipments globally in a matter of milliseconds. The software was complete, fully tested, and we were slated to launch it and revolutionize the industry at the end of the month. But my family knew absolutely nothing about my project, my equity, or my quiet, rapidly accumulating wealth. And that staggering ignorance set the stage for the most horrific, unforgivable betrayal of my life. It started exactly 2 weeks before the Aegis Global Gala. My parents invited me over for what my mother described in a text as an urgent family matter. The moment I walked into their formal dining room and saw my mother's forced, trembling smile and my father's rigid, aggressive posture, my stomach tied itself into a heavy knot. Derek was sitting at the head of the table, looking uncharacteristically terrified, aggressively chewing on his thumbnail. I sat down, and my father didn't even bother offering me a glass of water before dropping the bomb. "David," my father began, using his deepest, most authoritative voice, the one he reserved for giving me orders. "Your brother is in a very tight spot, and we need you to step up and do your duty to this family." "What kind of tight spot?" I asked, instantly on guard, crossing my arms over my chest. Derek let out a dramatic, victimized sigh. "It's not my fault, Dave. The corporate culture at Aegis is incredibly cutthroat. You have to spend money to make money, you know? You have to look the part. I had to buy the right tailored suits, lease the right luxury car, and take prospective clients to Michelin-star restaurants to secure my standing. I'm up for a massive promotion to Senior Vice President of Communications, but the credit card companies are freezing my accounts. I have $150,000 in high-interest unsecured debt, and they're threatening to garnish my wages next week. If the Human Resources Department finds out, I'll be terminated immediately. Aegis doesn't promote people with compromised financials." I stared at him in absolute stunned disbelief. I felt the air leave my lungs. $150,000? On clothes and dinners? Are you out of your mind? "It's an investment in his future," my mother snapped, slamming her hand down on the mahogany table, making the silverware rattle. "You wouldn't understand, David. You sit in your tiny apartment all day doing God knows what on that computer. Derek operates in the real world. He has actual stakes." "Okay," I said slowly, trying desperately to keep my temper in check. "That sounds like a massive, catastrophic problem for Derek. What exactly does it have to do with me?" My father leaned forward, his eyes hard, cold, and uncompromising. "We looked into your living situation. We know you own that little starter house of yours outright. You drive a 10-year-old sedan. You don't take vacations. You have zero expenses. We know you must have a significant amount of money saved up, and you have substantial equity in that house. We went to the bank and got the paperwork for a home equity line of credit. We need you to sign it, pull the cash out, and pay off Derek's debt." The room went dead silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I actually let out a dry, humorless laugh, genuinely thinking it had to be a sick, elaborate joke. But the icy, expectant glares from my family confirmed it was not. I decided to go. I wanted to meet the man who had treated me with more respect, dignity, and professional courtesy in 2 years than my own family had in 30. Which brings us back to the suffocating opulence of the Starlight Hotel ballroom. I fully expected my family to be there. Derek had been bragging about this gala for months, claiming it was the night he would secure his massive promotion. When I walked in, carrying a sleek, silver biometric briefcase under my arm, my parents and Derek spotted me almost immediately. They abandoned their conversation with the executives and cornered me near the ice sculpture, their eyes wide with furious, hateful confusion. "What the hell are you doing here?" Derek hissed, looking around nervously, terrified that his colleagues might see him associating with me. "How did you even get past the security detail at the door? This is an exclusive corporate event, David. Freelance IT guys aren't on the guest list." "I was invited," I said calmly, taking a slow sip of my tonic water, keeping my face entirely unreadable. "Don't you dare lie to us, David," my mother spat, her voice a harsh, venomous whisper. "You came here to embarrass Derek, didn't you? Because you're so bitterly jealous of his success. You couldn't just stay in your miserable, lonely little house. You had to come here and try to drag him down on the most important night of his life." Before I could even formulate a response to her delusion, Derek's boss strolled over. He was a slick, heavily cologned senior vice president named Marcus Vance. Marcus had a legendary reputation in the industry for being utterly ruthless, deeply unoriginal, and completely devoid of independent thought. He survived by stealing ideas from his subordinates. "Derek, my boy," Marcus boomed, slapping my brother hard on the shoulder. "And who is this? One of your media contacts?" "You want me to take out a massive loan against my own home to pay off Derek's luxury car and designer watches?" I asked, my voice rising in pitch, trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. "Are you insane? No, absolutely not. Never." Derek's face flushed a deep, violent red. He slammed his fists on the table, knocking over a salt shaker. "It's a loan, you selfish prick. I'll pay you back every single cent when I get the senior VP job. I'm good for it." "Just like you paid me back the $8,000 I lent you for your apartment deposit 4 years ago." I shot back, my voice echoing off the walls. "I'm not doing it. I work 80-hour weeks. I earned what little I have. You spent your money trying to look rich and impress people who don't care about you. Deal with the consequences of your own actions for once in your life." My mother burst into loud theatrical tears, burying her face in her hands. "How can you be so incredibly cruel? He is your own flesh and blood. If you don't do this, you are going to ruin his entire life. We don't have the money to bail him out this time, David. You are the only one who can save him. If you don't sign these papers right now, you are no longer a part of this family. We will cut you off completely. You will be dead to us." The emotional manipulation was so blatant, so unbelievably toxic and calculated, that it felt like a physical blow to the chest. They were entirely willing to disown me, to cast me out into the cold, just to protect Derek from his own staggering financial incompetence. I looked at the three of them, the people who were supposed to love, protect, and support me, and realized they saw me as nothing more than an ATM. A resource to be mined until I was empty. "Then I guess I'm an orphan," I said quietly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I stood up from the table, turned my back on them, walked out the front door, and didn't look back. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone became a battleground. It blew up with vicious, venomous texts from my parents, calling me a traitor, a sociopath, and a miserable failure who was jealous of his brother's light. Derek left unhinged voicemails, alternating between begging me for the money and threatening to come to my house and beat the signature out of me. I blocked every single one of their numbers. I channeled every ounce of my grief, my rage, and my emotional energy into finalizing my software. The final beta tests were absolutely flawless. During our last voice call, my mysterious business partner informed me that he was, in fact, the silent majority owner of Aegis Global. He told me he wanted me to attend the company's annual winter gala. He wanted to finally meet in person, reveal his identity to the world, and officially sign the incorporation papers for our new tech firm over a glass of vintage scotch. A few minutes later, a highly secured digital VIP ticket arrived in my inbox. Derek forced a painfully wide, fake smile. "Marcus, this is my older brother David. He fixes computers for small businesses. He just tagged along." Marcus looked me up and down, his eyes lingering critically on the frayed cuffs of my outdated suit. He let out a loud, condescending chuckle. "Right. Well, it takes all kinds to keep the wheels turning, I suppose. Not everyone is cut out for the pressure of the big leagues." Marcus dismissed me entirely, turning his predatory focus back to Derek. "Listen closely, Derek. The board of directors is demanding massive innovation. We are bleeding money in our Asian shipping routes. If you want that senior VP spot, you need to show me a groundbreaking initiative tonight. The owner is supposedly making a rare appearance, and I need a golden goose to present to him to secure my own bonus. What do you have for me?" I watched a cold sense of absolute dread washing over me as Derek's panicked eyes darted downward, locking onto the silver biometric briefcase tucked firmly under my arm. Inside that case was a secure, heavily encrypted tablet containing the entire source code, the predictive models, and the fully functional prototype for my logistics algorithm. I had brought it to review the final data sets with my partner. Derek's financial desperation made him reckless. It made him feral. "Actually, Marcus," Derek said, his voice trembling slightly, a manic light dancing in his eyes. "I have something unbelievable. A software project I've been developing in absolute secrecy for the last 2 years. It's a revolutionary, AI-driven logistics and predictive routing algorithm." My blood ran ice cold. "Derek, do not do this," I warned him softly, my voice laced with genuine danger. Derek completely ignored me. He lunged forward, violently yanking the metal briefcase from my grip. Because it was my old case, the left latch was broken and it popped open in his hands. He pulled out my tablet. He didn't need my biometric thumbprint. He knew my backup passcode because it was our mother's birthday, a code I used for everything out of sheer stupid habit. He unlocked the screen and launched the prototype interface right there in front of Marcus. "I conceptualized the entire architecture," Derek lied flawlessly, his voice gaining confidence as he showed Marcus the live data streams processing at impossible speeds, the predictive maps shifting in real time. "It's a billion-dollar piece of software. I hired a few cheap freelance coders off the internet to build the functional prototype for me, based on my blueprints." Marcus's eyes widened in genuine, unadulterated amazement. He watched the metrics stabilize on the screen, instantly recognizing the value of what he was seeing. "Derek, this is absolutely brilliant. This is exactly the kind of proprietary technology we need to dominate the sector. You built this?" He absolutely did not. I stepped forward, my voice rising over the ambient string music of the Gala, raw and hard. "That is my tablet. That is my intellectual property. I coded every single line of that software. Give it back to me right now." Marcus looked at me, an ugly, condescending sneer twisting his features. "Excuse me? Who let the help desk speak?" "David, stop embarrassing yourself immediately," my father barked, stepping forcefully between me and Marcus, using his body as a shield for Derek. "I apologize profoundly, Mr. Vance. My eldest son has a long, documented history of pathological lying and severe mental instability. He is incredibly jealous of Derek's natural talent. Derek has been working on this project at our dining room table for over a year. David is just trying to steal his thunder." I stared at my father, the absolute magnitude of his betrayal washing over me like a wave of freezing water. He was actively, maliciously willing to aid in the theft of my life's work, my entire future, just to secure his golden child a corporate promotion and bail him out of debt. "Give me the tablet, Derek," I demanded, stepping around my father, reaching for the device. Derek shoved me backward, hard, using both hands against my chest. I stumbled, my heel catching on the edge of a rug, and I knocked violently into a waiter carrying a massive silver tray of champagne flutes. The tray went crashing to the marble floor, the sound of 100 glass flutes shattering echoing like a bomb through the cavernous ballroom. The live string quartet abruptly stopped playing. Hundreds of conversations ceased in an instant. The entire gala, every executive, every socialite, every board member, turned to stare at the commotion. Security guards in dark suits began rapidly converging on our location from all corners of the room. Marcus puffed out his chest, pointing a manicured, accusatory finger directly at my face. "Security! Remove this lunatic from the premises immediately," Marcus commanded loudly, ensuring his voice carried to every corner of the room. He just physically assaulted one of my top executives and attempted to steal proprietary company technology. My mother covered her mouth with both hands, feigning absolute horror and devastation. "I am so sorry, Derek," she cried out loudly, performing for the crowd. "We never should have let him come. We tried to get him help. He's always trying to ruin your life." The whispers began rippling through the crowd of elites. They were looking at me with pure disgust, seeing me as a deranged, jealous sibling throwing a violent tantrum. Two massive security guards grabbed me roughly by the arms, their thick fingers digging painfully into my biceps. "Sir, you need to leave the premises right now, or we will involve the police," one of the guards growled in my ear. "Let go of me," I said, struggling against their iron grip, my heart pounding in my throat. "He stole my tablet. That is my software." Derek stood safely behind Marcus, a smug, victorious, utterly evil grin plastered across his face. He had won. He had stolen my project, secured his promotion, and successfully turned my entire family and a ballroom full of powerful industry leaders against me in one swift move. "Get him out of my sight," Marcus waved his hand dismissively, like I was garbage. "Derek, bring that tablet to the VIP lounge. When the owner arrives, we are presenting your project to him together." The guards began physically dragging me backward toward the service exit. I felt a wave of absolute crushing despair wash over me. All my hard work, all those sleepless nights staring at lines of code until my eyes bled, all of it stolen by the brother who had taken everything else from me my entire life. But just as the guards dragged me halfway across the ballroom, the heavy, intricately carved mahogany doors at the main entrance were thrown open with such force that they banged against the walls. The room went impossibly, terrifyingly quiet. Even the guards holding my arms froze dead in their tracks. Walking through the doors was a tall, distinguished man in his late 60s, wearing a breathtakingly sharp midnight blue tuxedo. He had silver hair and an aura of absolute terrifying authority that commanded the room without him having to utter a single syllable. He was flanked by four serious-looking men with earpieces. It was Silas Thorne, the founder, majority shareholder, and completely reclusive billionaire owner of Aegis Global. He hadn't attended a public company event in over a decade. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The executives instantly straightened their posture, practically vibrating with the desperate desire to be noticed. Marcus's eyes widened with greedy, ravenous anticipation. He grabbed Derek by the arm and forcibly dragged my brother toward the entrance to intercept the billionaire before he could mingle. "Mr. Thorne," Marcus called out, his voice practically trembling with eagerness as he stepped directly into the billionaire's path. "It is a profound honor, sir. I am Marcus Vance, Senior Vice President, and this is my protege, Derek. We have an unbelievable, revolutionary new proprietary software we'd love to pitch to you tonight. It's a guaranteed billion-dollar asset for Aegis." Silas Thorne stopped. He looked at Marcus with a gaze so cold, so piercing, it could have cut through steel. Then, he slowly shifted his gaze to Derek, who was desperately holding my tablet up like a shiny offering to a god. Silas didn't say a single word to them. He simply raised one finger, gesturing for his security detail. His bodyguard stepped forward and physically shoved the senior VP and my brother aside, parting them like annoying weeds in a garden. Silas Thorne's eyes scanned the massive ballroom. He bypassed the mayor of the city, he ignored the board of directors, and he walked right past the celebrity influencers hired for the night. He walked with total purpose, a straight line right toward the back of the room, right toward where the two security guards were still gripping my arms. As Silas approached, the guards instinctively realized their mistake. They let go of me instantly and took 3 large steps back, terrified of the man's sheer presence. Silas stopped 2 feet in front of me. He looked at my cheap, wrinkled suit. He looked down at the shattered glass and spilled champagne on the floor. And then, a warm, genuine, incredibly bright smile broke across his stern face. He held out his hand. "David," Silas said, his voice deep, resonant, and carrying perfectly through the dead silent ballroom. "It's incredible to finally meet you in person. I apologize for being late, partner." I stared at him, the pieces rapidly clicking together in my mind. The voice-altered calls, the limitless development budget, the brilliant business strategies, the deep understanding of global logistics. I reached out and shook his hand firmly. "Silas, it's very good to finally put a face to the name." The collective shock in the room was a physical entity. It felt like all the oxygen had been violently sucked out of the building. Marcus looked like he was going to vomit right there on the marble. Derek's face had completely drained of color. He looked like a reanimated corpse standing in a tailored suit, his mouth opening and closing without sound. My parents were completely frozen, their mouths literally hanging open in grotesque caricatures of absolute confusion. Silas turned around to face the crowd, resting a heavy, reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Ladies and gentlemen," Silas announced, projecting his voice effortlessly to the back of the room. "For the past 2 years, I have been quietly funding an independent tech firm entirely outside of the Aegis Global umbrella. We have developed a revolutionary logistics algorithm that will change global trade forever. But I didn't build it. The absolute genius standing next to me did. David is not an employee of Aegis Global. He is the sole brilliant architect of this software, and as of tonight, he is my 50-50 equal partner in a new parent company that will be aggressively acquiring Aegis Global's entire logistics division." The room erupted into a frenzy of frantic, disbelieving whispers. I looked directly at my family. My mother looked like she was actively hyperventilating, clutching her pearl necklace as if it were a lifeline. Silas narrowed his eyes, his expression turning to stone, and pointed a finger directly at Derek, who was still helplessly clutching my tablet. "Which brings me to an incredibly concerning, frankly disgusting issue," Silas said, his voice turning lethally sharp. "I was informed by my security team at the door that there was a physical altercation. I just watched a mid-level PR employee and a senior VP attempt to present a project to me, a project that belongs entirely to my partner." Silas took a slow, menacing step toward Marcus and Derek. "Did you actually think you could steal the life's work of my co-founder, physically assault him, and pitch his own software to me in my own building?" Marcus started sweating profusely, his hands trembling violently. "Mr. Thorne, I swear to you on my life, I had absolutely no idea. Derek told me he built it. He lied to me. He's a fraud, sir. Please, you have to believe me." Derek completely panicked. The facade shattered. He threw Marcus completely under the bus, tears springing to his eyes. "No, Marcus pressured me. He told me I needed a big idea tonight or I was fired. My brother built it. David, tell him. David, I'm your brother, please. Tell him I was just holding it for you." I looked at Derek, staring into the eyes of the boy who had tormented me, the man who had tried to ruin me, and felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy, no anger. Just a profound, liberating emptiness. "You stole my tablet, Derek," I said, my voice ringing out clearly for the entire room to hear. "You claimed my code as your own, you lied to your boss, and you tried to have me thrown out of the building like trash.